Yes, I was in Parliament for 8 years between 2010 and 2018, where I was one of the members of Parliament who actually wrote a motion for Parliament about a peace department. There were a couple of us. I want to mention Walter Mutt, who's been very active in this. We also wrote motions about having a peace institute on Gotland, and also on improving and expanding grassroots communication and cooperation with Russia, because I mean the Putin and his regime, they are very bad, but they're about, I don't know, 140 millions or something, or 100 or even more other people there who are probably also interested in living in peace and maybe even doing good things together with their neighbors. Okay, so what response did we get on our motions? Well, basically silence. No one really cared. If anyone did, they just said, okay, this was probably Putin's idea, or you're just nuts, and this is just idiotic. But mainly silence. Not even our own party was supportive, so we were a minority there. It was even worse with the host nation support treaty, where 4 of us in the Green group actually voted for the party line, which was against, of course, this kind of treaty, against entering this nuclear military aggressive alliance. But then we had a real conflict in the parliamentary group, which I will spare you more details about now. You may ask me if you're interested. We also try to promote the idea of peace department by writing motions to the party congresses, which were annual at the time. I think they still are. I'm not a member of the party anymore for this and other reasons. So in 2016, we did write a motion demanding simply that the Green Party would try and influence also the Social Democrats that we were in the government with, and a minority government. But I mean, it would have been in the power of the government or the prime minister, of course, to actually create such a department. We did it very late before deadline, but still we had over 160 persons and also local groups in the party who supported this motion. And that was record at the time, the most amount of people that ever supported the motion to Green Party Congress. And what reply did we get from the leaders of the party? They didn't want this. They were against, and they tried so hard to explain why, because sorry, there's a barking dog here. I'm trying to solve it peacefully, but yeah, I need candy, dog candy. I don't have any. Sorry. Anyway, I hope you'll be silent. Yes, they said that the foreign ministry, they're already working with peace, and this would just cause fraction, and no one would know what would the peace minister of peace do, and what would this the ministry actually do. And we tried to say, well, this is such an important area. It's just like when we didn't have a minister of environment, blah blah blah. But then people realized this is so important. It needs to be have a ministry of its own. And we said this is not constant. And we said we had all these good reasons, I would say, but they just said no. We already have. This would be like criticizing our very good foreign minister who is working so hard on peace issues, and everything is peace issues. And how could we separate this? This was very lame, but they managed to make some late night compromise suggestions that the Green Party should do whatever non-committing statements that, oh, we need to have even more peace work in the foreign ministry. We don't change anything. It was very disappointing. Of course, we came back the next year and we said, okay, we'll just be a little bit more, take a smaller step and just suggest a minister of peace within the foreign ministry, just a minister, not a department of his or her own. And we had the same answer, basically, although we had even greater support from the party members. We had over 250 supporting it. And it was also then again quite late, so maybe we would have even more if we had been doing this earlier. So quite big support. And this was, I don't know exactly what was the problem for them, because the Green Party is from the peace movement. Not we have. I mean, that's the big thing with the Green Party, the green ideology. We see that peace and environment and human rights, all this, it's connected, but they just spat on it basically because of probably of their careers. It would have been difficult in government. I mean, these are my guesses. There was some cowardice in this, cowardice, and there was also, I mean, yeah, you want to have your careers within the establishment. And I would say that Sweden is a very small country, at least in its mind. We may have more inhabitants than Finland or Denmark or Norway, but it's only possible to think within a very narrow scope if you want to be considered what do you say, fit for government, for instance. If you want to be listened to at all, it's quite scary, and it has become worse. I think also the Social Democrats, who have been trying to achieve a Ministry of Peace within their party, the Social Democratic women, I would like to mention Ia Bjertén, who's done a very good job, and they also have big support within their party among the grassroots, and they are raising this and congresses and so on. But they get more or less the same response, that it's only the Prime Minister who decides who's to be in the government, and besides, we already work with peace all the time, which is of course not true. If you could measure, if you could value the commitment and the effects of peace commitment in paper, then I think Sweden would be excellent. I actually, when I was thinking about this topic, I remember when I was working in Helsinki in Nokia Data in 1990. And my Finnish colleagues, they thought, okay, a Swede, I mean, you just write a lot of papers, you're very bureaucratic, we just work. And I thought they were a bit extreme. We wrote programs, computer programs, and they would write some comment in Finnish in the code, and that was like their documentation. And so, okay, this is not very good, well documented. But now I tend to think I would sympathize with them, because there's so many policy documents, there's so many beautiful words about how much the governments work for peace in Sweden. But when it comes to actually doing something, it's actually the opposite. And now NATO, I don't need to go into that. I mean, it's a disaster. It's also a democratic disaster, because democracy is spat at as well, because people cannot have their say. We have elections in September. We could wait. We don't need to do this because Finland does it. We are not Siamese twins. I mean, Putin, okay, I shouldn't delve into that. But what I would like to say more, I've complained a lot, yes, because the situation is bad. And what is the cause of it? And what can we do to come forward? Well, we have to do a power analysis. I would actually say that Sweden is more or less of an oligarchy. We have a very handful of people who earn very much money and have very big power in the arms industry, and they have a big say, but not so transparently, perhaps. I would say that's one basic cause. I was also into this. It's a very strange consensus culture is good, but not always. I think there's also some big element of functional stupidity. I don't know if you heard the term funktionell dumhet in Swedish, coined by scholars in Lund, Mats Alvesson, and another one, I forgot his name. Anyway, it's the concept that you make yourself more stupid than you are. You think just within a narrow scope of allowed thinking, never outside the box. You're less creative than you should be, which can be functional if you work in a short term, at least if you work in some company and so on. But in long term, of course, it's devastating. And in politics and society, of course, it's even more devastating. So I think, people made themselves stupider than they are. They only think in the military logic because that is what is mainstream. I also think that many young people, they have what do you say in English? Historielöshet. They have a lack of historic knowledge, and they have never experienced war. They don't consider war. They don't nuclear weapons. That is some science fiction from the past. I think so. And that could be an element. I mean, it was quite ironic, actually, like in the Green Party group in Parliament. There were these young members of Parliament. They were fighting so hard for refugees' rights, but they were totally uninterested in the root causes, and they would just vote for the host nation support treaty and so on. They wouldn't listen to this. So I was thinking, maybe, what about the young people in Sweden? There are many that have own experiences of war, or their parents have experiences of war. Would we perhaps approach them to try and mobilize them and engage them? I don't think that has really been done. Well, we need a mass movement. It's not enough that a handful of us try to raise these issues. And what about the members in the Social Democratic Party? I mean, they would be really upset now, as upset as I am. I'm really angry about all this when they are so totally ignored, and then they're humiliated by their own leadership, because it's said that we have a democratic process. They have a few Zoom meetings and everything's decided. Everyone knows it. It's just humiliating. Will they eventually get enough? I don't know. It would be very interesting to see. I think another positive thing that we might work on is now it's a big fuss about, now we're getting into war. We must be ready because we must need to produce our own food. We must have storage, like in Finland, of medicines and food and so on. And some people at least, they are like planting the potatoes and so on. Maybe that is something to build on, which is good in any case, because I mean, it makes me so desperate. I mean, we have the climate that's running, is going into this. We're running into a disaster, and that's just put on hold. Now we need weapons. That's the narrative, and we just ignore the climate change and so on, and we ignore the economic system. Like Lars said, of course we need economic justice. We need to get rid of the neoliberal system and everything. Otherwise, we'll never manage it. But people are sleeping. People aren't there. And there's so much also this we have so much knowledge and experience on our side, and it's documented that non-violence is more effective. I mean, we have a recent example from Sweden. We had riots in several cities because of a Danish politician that his idea is to go to poor areas where there live many immigrants and burn Korans. And he was very successful in several cities during Easter in Sweden, where there were riots and people were really upset. But one city, Jönköping, Råslätt in Jönköping, they just ignored him and they booed, and the church bells were ringing, and there was no violence. Imagine if people had been taught in school that this is how to deal with provokers like this. Could we use this and raise this as an example? I don't know. I think I've spoken very much now. Did I speak for 15 minutes or more?
You were right on time as well.
Was I? See if there's anything else I wanted to talk about. Yes, can I just mention one thing which is interesting, connecting it to the ecocide idea. Would it be possible to use lawsuits like in Urgenda in the Netherlands, if you heard about that, where an environment organization sued the government because they didn't do enough to prevent climate change, which is existential threat to them, and they won. And then the government said, okay, we'll phase out coal until 2030, and then they were sued because of energy companies. But anyway, is that a way to go? We have some initiatives regarding climate in Sweden, but have you heard of that in any other countries regarding peace? Could we sue governments? I'm not a lawyer, I'm an engineer, so I don't know, but just things that I've been thinking of. And now I look forward very much to hearing about what goes on in my neighbor countries. So yeah, that's about it.
Great.